What if the sky above has never been silent? What if every ruin, every collapsed empire, every myth carved into stone was not imagination, but memory? Memory of a celestial visitor that returns again and again, leaving nothing but silence in its wake. When we stare at the stars, we believe they are constant, eternal, fixed in their beauty. But what if they are not only lights of comfort, but also omens, bearing witness to destruction written into the fabric of time? And what if one of them has always been coming back, brushing past our fragile world like a predator circling prey? The ancients told us stories. They spoke of serpents uncoiling across the night sky, of fire raining from the heavens, of wandering stars that passed overhead and left kingdoms broken beneath them. To modern ears, these sound like myths, the products of fearful imagination. Yet myth often conceals memory. When fire falls from the sky, the survivors do not always write science. They write warnings, wrapped in symbols so they can be remembered across generations. And so, we inherit whispers of cosmic dragons, fiery gods, and celestial curses. We laugh at them, but perhaps we should listen. The name of this visitor, in our time, is Atlas, 3I/Atlas, an interstellar wanderer, not bound to our sun, not belonging to our solar family. It drifts from the darkness beyond, carrying secrets older than Earth itself. The strange truth is this: it does not need to strike us to undo us. The sky itself is delicate, the balance of orbits, the fragile climate, the breath of air we take for granted. These can be disturbed by a passing shadow, by a gravitational whisper, by dust that veils the sun for just long enough to wither harvests. Collapse need not come with thunder. It can arrive quietly, like a season that never ends, a famine that never lifts, a silence that replaces the voices of once great cities. Imagine standing in a field 4,000 years ago. You look up at the night sky and see a serpent of fire crossing the horizon, a light so vast it feels alive. You do not know physics, you do not know orbital mechanics, but you know terror. And when the rains do not come the next year, when the rivers dry, when disease spreads, you remember the fire above. You carve it into stone, you whisper it into song, and that memory outlives you, passed down as a warning. Yet, centuries later, the story becomes myth, and the memory is dismissed, until the fire comes again. Civilizations fall not only from swords and politics, but from the sky. The Mayans saw their cities swallowed by jungle. The Indus Valley was abandoned. Rome, at the height of power, spoke of omens in the heavens. Each collapse seems sudden, inexplicable, as if history itself shuddered. We dig into the earth and find layers of ash, strange minerals melted by fire, traces of cosmic dust. The stories and the evidence begin to whisper the same message. Perhaps the sky remembers what we forget, but what is Atlas? To the astronomer, it is a body from beyond the solar system, a fragment of cosmic debris set adrift from another star long ago. To the philosopher, it is fate in motion, an echo of inevitability. To the storyteller, it is the curse that threads history together, returning like the tolling of a clock that does not care for us. We call it a comet, but perhaps that word is too small for what it carries. The weight of extinctions, the shattering of ages, the silence of forgotten empires. The ancients feared the sky for good reason. Today we watch the heavens with telescopes and instruments, tracking trajectories, measuring orbits, calculating probabilities. Yet even now, certainty eludes us. Objects like Atlas appear suddenly, sweeping in from the black unknown, unseen until they are already here. How many times has it passed before? How many times have we paid the price? Each civilization believes it will last forever, until it doesn't. Each thinks collapse is impossible, until the fields turn barren and the walls crumble in silence. Picture the last night of a city. The fires have burned low. The rulers still believe themselves in control, yet beyond their walls the sky glows faintly, a streak stretching across the stars. Farmers whisper of strange lights. Children wake crying in the night. And then the rains fail, the rivers recede, trade collapses. Fear spreads faster than plague. Generations later, only ruins remain, and above them, carved into stone, is the image of a serpent of fire. Was it Atlas? Or something like it? We cannot know for certain. But the stories repeat, continent to continent, culture to culture, whispering of the same fear, the same celestial curse. Science tells us the universe is vast, filled with wanderers cast loose from their stars. Some drift forever, carrying the silence of dead systems. Others pass through new suns, disturbing worlds like a hand brushing sand into ripples. We are small, fragile, and Earth is not immune. Atlas is only one of many, but its story, our story, may stretch far deeper into time than we dare admit. It may have already brushed us, already written its mark into our history, and if it has passed before, it can pass again. Think of extinction. The dinosaurs did not imagine their end, yet the sky delivered it. Humanity too lives under that same sky. When Atlas returns, will we stand untouched, or will we become another layer of forgotten history, another silence buried beneath dust? The question is not whether the sky can change us, it always has, but whether we will see the pattern before it is too late. The hook of this documentary is simple and terrifying. Civilizations collapse not only from within, but from above. And the visitor we name Atlas may be more than just a traveler. It may be a curse, ancient and patient, weaving destruction into our history like clockwork. The ancients saw it, feared it, recorded it. We dismiss their voices as myth. But perhaps, when the sky glows again, we will understand that they were not writing stories. They were writing warnings. The night sky has always been beautiful, but beauty can be deceptive. A flame is beautiful until it burns your home. A serpent is mesmerizing until it coils around you. What then is a comet? A passing spectacle? Or a reminder that the universe is not benign? When Atlas shines again, humanity will look up as we always have. Some will marvel, some will fear, but all of us will stand beneath a sky that has ended worlds before, and perhaps it will again. What if myths are not fantasies, but scars, echoes carved into memory when history itself could not survive? What if the dragons, the serpents, the fiery gods painted across the skies of ancient cultures are not imagination, but testimony? Testimony of survival etched into story so it might outlast ruin. We inherit their tales like broken pieces of memory, forgetting that echoes are only born from sound, and myths are only born from things once seen. Across continents, across centuries, the same visions appear. In Mesopotamia, tablets whisper of fire gods whose breath blackened the earth. In China, a celestial dragon devours the moon, turning night into terror. In the North speak of Ragnarok, when serpents rise from the sea and fire consumes the heavens. In the jungles of the Maya, the death and rebirth of suns are recorded as cycles, each collapse marked by cosmic catastrophe. What unites such distant peoples, oceans apart, in their descriptions of dragons and fiery serpents? Coincidence? Or the same wandering star burning itself into memory again and again? The language of myth is metaphor, yet metaphor hides memory. Imagine a village staring at the sky as fire streaks across it for nights on end. They do not know physics, do not know orbital mechanics, but they know hunger when crops wither, they know thirst when rivers shrink, they know fear when the nights glow brighter than day. How do they explain it to their children? They tell them a serpent swallowed the sun. They tell them gods grew angry. They tell them the heavens themselves betrayed them. And thus the terror becomes story, and story becomes ritual. And ritual becomes the heartbeat of a culture. Yet inside, quietly, there remains a warning. Beware the sky when it burns. Picture a Mayan priest centuries ago, standing at the top of a pyramid, watching as the heavens erupt into fiery scars. He cannot explain the dust that dims the sun, the sudden change in seasons, the spreading famine. So, he carves serpents into stone. He encodes terror into symbols. To him, it is not art, it is survival. Memory etched so it will never be forgotten. But centuries later, when his city has fallen silent, when jungle has swallowed temples, archaeologists see only mythology. They do not see what he saw. They do not feel the sky shake. The rhythm persists. The Aztecs spoke of suns destroyed and reborn, ages ending in fire. The Greeks warned of Phaethon, who lost control of the sun's chariot and set the world aflame. In India, epics describe weapons of the gods that scorch the skies with brightness greater than 1,000 suns. The Aboriginal Australians sing of sky serpents, whose movements brought flood and famine. Different lands, different tongues, but always the same pulse of fear, the same sense that the heavens themselves once turned against the earth. Is this all invention? Or are these fragments of an ancient pattern a record of encounters with something vast, something like Atlas that returned across ages? Myth is the survival of memory in disguise. When cities fall and libraries burn, when bones scatter in silence, the only thing that endures is story. And story carries memory farther than stone. Yet we, inheritors of these warnings, dismiss them as fairy tales, never asking the most dangerous question. What did they actually see? The Egyptians spoke of a star that devoured the horizon. The Sumerians recorded Nibiru, a wandering star that returned to bring judgment. Japanese lore speaks of fiery wheels crossing the sky. Native Americans tell of the thunderbird casting fire upon the land. The metaphors differ, but the terror is the same. The heavens open, the world shudders, civilizations tremble, always fire, always collapse, always the image of something vast devouring the sky. Strip away the costumes of myth, peel back the metaphor, and what remains is a repeating story. Fire streaking the heavens, floods following impact, famine stretching for years, civilizations unraveling. Each myth is a deathbed warning whispered from one age to the next, begging us to beware what comes from above. Yet, we smile at their stories, turn them into children's tales, never asking why the same dragon, the same serpent, the same consuming fire appears everywhere. Even Atlantis, whether myth or memory, fits the rhythm. A brilliant city lost to sea in a flame. Was it imagination? Or was it memory of cosmic debris crashing into the ocean, birthing tsunamis, drowning empires? Plato's words echo like a riddle from the past, and we ignore them, just as we ignore the rest. But stories persist because they carry weight. No one remembers the ordinary. Only the extraordinary burns into memory deep enough to last 10,000 years. Science itself confirms that myths preserve reality. Flood myths recall rising seas at the end of the Ice Age. Volcanic gods echo real eruptions. Fire from the sky may not be metaphor at all, but eyewitness testimony, translated into gods and serpents because no other words existed. In that light, Atlas is not merely a comet. It is the dragon beneath all dragons, the serpent behind all serpents, the true face of terror encoded in countless tongues. And so we must ask, if myths are memories, what are they warning us of? If every collapse is accompanied by fire above, if every ruin carries serpents carved into stone, are we not living in the next verse of the same song? We, with satellites and telescopes, are still human, still fragile beneath the endless sky. If Atlas comes again, what will our myths be? Screens filled with streaks of light, data etched into silicon, desperate warnings uploaded into the void? Or will our towers fall silent like theirs, leaving only broken whispers for those who come after? Perhaps the curse of Atlas is not only destruction, but amnesia. Each time it passes, it leaves fire, famine, collapse, and stories. And then, as centuries pass, the stories are forgotten, softened into myth, dismissed as dream. Until it comes again. Until history repeats. Until we remember too late. Myths are not dead. They are time capsules. The ancients handed us their warnings sealed in symbols. The question is not whether we believe them. The question is whether we will decipher them before the cycle closes once more. Civilizations do not fall gently. They fracture. They unravel. They vanish as though swallowed by silence. When we walk among their ruins today, we marvel at their stone walls, their statues, their fragments of language. We measure their bricks, decipher their inscriptions, reconstruct their tools. But the question that lingers is not only how they lived, but why they died. And often, their endings do not feel like the slow decline of time. They feel like interruptions, abrupt, violent, incomprehensible, as though something vast reached down from the sky and simply turned the page. The Indus Valley was one of humanity's first great experiments in civilization. Cities like Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa thrived with order and precision. Grid-planned streets, drainage systems that would not be rivaled until Rome, wells in every neighborhood, trade routes reaching far across deserts and seas. Their people left no grand monuments of conquest, no glorifying inscriptions of kings. Instead, they left a system that worked, quietly, brilliantly. And then, It ended. Entire cities abandoned, skeletons unburied, lying in the dust as though death came too suddenly to permit ritual, pots of grain still in storage, workshops left half-finished. There is no record of invading armies, no evidence of gradual decay, only silence. Some blame river shifts, others climate change. But rivers shift over centuries, not days. Climate does not erase cities in an instant. What then tore through the heart of a thriving world? What if the rains did not fail by chance? What if something in the sky veiled the sun, dimmed the monsoon, and turned a fertile valley into dust almost overnight? The Maya, too, reached heights of brilliance. Their pyramids rose from the jungle, their calendars stretched across ages. Their cities were alive with art, science, ceremony. Yet, in a few centuries, much of their world was gone. Cities overgrown, plazas empty, the jungle reclaiming all. Archaeologists find evidence of long droughts, harvest failures, and unrest. But Mayan inscriptions also tell of suns that died, of ages that ended, of serpents in the heavens. Was this only metaphor, or was it testimony? Imagine standing in a Mayan plaza, looking up as a streak of fire scars the sky, trailing a dust veil that dims the sun for years. Imagine the slow agony that follows, rivers receding, famine spreading, rulers losing faith. How do you explain this to your children, to your people? You say the sun has died. You say the gods are angry. You carve serpents into stone to warn those who come after. But centuries later, when the jungle hides your temples, your story is called myth, and the sky that destroyed you is forgotten. Rome, the eternal city, believed itself invincible. Yet even Rome trembled under skies it could not control. Chroniclers described omens, suns doubled in the heavens, comets lingering for months, nights bright as day. After these signs came famine, disease, collapse. Historians speak of corruption, invasions, economic decline. But what if these were not the disease, but symptoms of a deeper wound? What if Rome faltered because the climate shifted suddenly? Because harvests failed after skies grew dim, because the earth itself buckled under cycles that no empire could master. Rome's enemies were not only men at its gates, its greatest enemy may have been the sky itself. Again and again, archaeology reveals abrupt endings. The Bronze Age collapse saw cities across the Mediterranean burn and vanish within decades. The Hittites, rulers of Anatolia, disappeared so completely that their name was forgotten until rediscovered by modern archaeologists. Mycenaean palaces crumbled, trade routes disintegrated, languages were lost. Scholars list invasions, migrations, uprisings, but all at once. Why did the entire known world shatter within the same century? In the same period, records describe comets in the sky, omens of fire, strange celestial movements. Was the collapse a coincidence? Or was it the hand of the heavens, scattering civilizations like leaves in a storm? Think of the Minoans on Crete, a people whose ships ruled the Aegean. Their palaces glowed with frescoes of dolphins, of dancers, of spirals and stars. Then came fire, flood, silence. Archaeologists point to the eruption of Thera, a volcano that shattered the island of Santorini. But what triggered the quake? What shaped the timing? Ancient myths describe gods in the sky, the wrath of Poseidon, the fall of Atlantis. Perhaps the eruption was the Earth's voice, but perhaps it was only one note in a wider cosmic symphony, set in motion by forces above. Göbekli Tepe, older still, remains one of the greatest mysteries of all, built 12,000 years ago, long before cities, long before writing. It rose with massive carved pillars, aligned with stars and seasons. Then, suddenly, it was buried. Not destroyed, not eroded, but deliberately sealed under tons of earth, as though its builders wanted it hidden, as though they feared what might come if it remained exposed. What terror drove them to bury their own masterpiece? What sky did they witness? What curse did they attempt to shield themselves from? The silence of the earth offers no answer, but the question lingers. Was it fear of the heavens that entombed humanity's first temple? Silence is the archaeologist's greatest clue. Pots left half-filled, skeletons unburied, tools mid-forged. These fragments whisper of interruptions. Not slow decline, not centuries of rot, but moments when life itself was torn away. Fire layers appear in the soil, thin bands of ash across continents, dated to ages when cities fell. In ice cores from Greenland and Antarctica, scientists find strange isotopes, hints of cosmic dust falling to Earth. These are fingerprints not of volcanoes alone, but of the sky itself. They tell us something burned, something fell, something passed. We have seen what such events can do even in recent memory. In 1908, over Tunguska in Siberia, a comet fragment or asteroid entered the atmosphere and exploded. The blast flattened 80 million trees. It was heard across continents. Night skies glowed for weeks, and yet no crater remained. If it had struck London or New York or Beijing, history would remember it as the end of an age. Civilization itself would have staggered. The only reason it was a curiosity, not a catastrophe, is that it landed in wilderness. But what of the past, when civilizations were small and fragile? What if their Tunguskas came not in forests but above cities? Would we not find exactly what we see? Ruins, silence, myths of fire from the heavens? Even subtler are the changes in climate. A veil of dust in the stratosphere, a dimming of sunlight, a season of darkness. These are enough to turn abundance into famine. Harvests fail. Hunger spreads. Disease follows hunger. Armies weaken. Governments crumble. Collapse begins not with an army at the gates, but with empty granaries. If a wanderer like Atlas passed close, trailing debris across Earth's skies, dimming the sun even for a year or two, the chain of consequence would unravel every society. The ancients may not have known the physics, but they knew the outcome, and so they recorded it, not in equations, but in myths of dragons and serpents, of gods stealing the sun. Angkor in Cambodia was once a metropolis larger than medieval London, a city of water and stone. Its people engineered canals, reservoirs, and temples on a monumental scale. Then, abruptly, it was abandoned. Monks remained, but the city was gone. Archaeologists speak of droughts and floods, but what if those extremes were the voice of the sky? What if dust veils shifted the rains, breaking the rhythm of seasons, turning abundance into ruin? Angkor's collapse is not unique. Cahokia in North America built massive earthen mounds and plazas. Then it too emptied, its people dispersing into silence. The Anasazi of the American Southwest raised cliff dwellings of astonishing ingenuity. Then famine came, and they vanished. In each case, skies were harsh. In each case, myths remembered fire, serpents, omens. Archaeology does not speak alone. Myths lie beside it, like commentary on ruins. Stones whisper silence. Stories whisper fire. Together, they form a pattern. And that pattern suggests that collapse is not only human, not only political, not only social. Collapse is also cosmic. Collapse descends from the heavens as surely as droughts and plagues, as surely as armies and swords. Atlas may have been there, unseen, its shadow brushing earth, its dust dimming skies, its passage marking the rhythm of civilizations undone. Imagine yourself walking through a ruined city. The air is still. The walls are cracked. The streets are empty. Yet, if you listen, you can almost hear the echoes. Children laughing, markets shouting, priests chanting, and then you look up. Above you are the same stars, the same heavens. And you wonder, was it the heavens that ended them? Did they look up on their last night and see a serpent of fire coiling across the sky, knowing that nothing they built could survive? Did their final prayer go not to gods of war or kings of men, but to the sky itself? Civilizations end. Ruins remain. But the sky does not forget. It keeps its rhythm. It keeps its cycle. And every age may simply be a breath between passages, a pause before the heavens remind us again that no tower, no temple, no empire is eternal. The silence of ruins is not only history, it is prophecy. A warning left in stone and soil that the same forces which undid them wait above us still, patient, inevitable. Perhaps the curse of Atlas is not only its passage, but our forgetting. Each time it comes, it leaves fire and famine. Each time, it leaves stories, and each time, we turn those stories into myth until the cycle begins anew. Stone endures, stories endure, but civilizations, no matter how vast, vanish when the sky decides. And one day, our ruins may join theirs, another chapter in the same endless pattern, another silence beneath the same stars. Civilizations fear armies, rulers, revolutions, but the truth is that the greatest threats often come from above, silent, unseen, indifferent. The sky, in its vastness, is not empty. It is alive with wanderers, fragments, clouds of dust, rivers of ice and stone, and Earth, fragile Earth, moves through it like a ship on a dark ocean, never knowing when a storm may rise. We call the visitor Atlas. We call others comets, asteroids, meteors, but their names mean nothing to the laws of physics. And physics does not care for our walls, our empires, our illusions of permanence. Physics cares only for force, for motion, for consequence. When an object drifts close to Earth, it need not strike us to undo us. Gravity is invisible, yet relentless. A body the size of Atlas passing near can tug at the orbits of smaller comets, scattering them inward like a hand striking a hive. Each fragment becomes a messenger of fire. Each fragment carries the potential of Tunguska, of Chicxulub, of skies turned red. The dinosaurs never imagined that their world would end in a single day, yet a rock from the heavens silenced them forever. Humanity is not immune. Our intelligence, our cities, our satellites cannot shield us from the mathematics of collision, but even without impact, even without a single strike, a wanderer can still unravel the fabric of our world. Dust. That is all it takes. Comets trail vast clouds of it, fine as smoke, lingering across space. When Earth passes through such debris, meteors streak across the sky. Beautiful, we call them, shooting stars, but beauty deceives. For dust also veils the sun. A thin haze in the stratosphere can cool the planet by degrees. A few degrees are enough to shorten harvests, to wither crops, to starve millions. The chemistry of sunlight is delicate. Tilt it slightly, and civilizations tremble. Atlas, dragging its veil of dust, could dim our skies long enough to write famine into every field. We know this because history remembers. The year 536 is still called the darkest in human memory. Chroniclers wrote that the sun dimmed, a veil covered the heavens, and for more than a year the world was plunged into shadow. Crops failed. Famine spread from China to Ireland. The Byzantine Empire faltered. Some blame volcanoes. Some suspect cosmic dust. But the result was the same: hunger, plague, collapse. The mathematics is simple. A veil above, a famine below, and suddenly empires bend like reeds. What volcanoes can do once, comets can do again. The physics is the same, the destruction is the same, and then there is fire. When fragments enter the atmosphere, they ignite. Air itself becomes weapon, compressed and heated until it explodes. A stone the size of a mountain shatters continents. A stone the size of a building can erase a city. Even fragments smaller than houses can set forests ablaze, poison skies with smoke, and ripple climate for decades. Energy is merciless. Kinetic force is absolute. A single impact releases more energy than every weapon humanity has ever built. No army, no king, no tower of glass can stand against it. Physics does not negotiate, it only delivers. Yet, destruction need not be so dramatic. Even subtle changes can undo us. A passing body can shift tides, tilt orbits slightly, disturb the dance of Earth and Moon. A change of fractions of a degree may seem nothing to the cosmos, but to us, it is everything. Rivers change their courses. Seasons slip from their rhythm. Oceans rise where cities stand. Life thrives on stability, but stability is fragile, and physics does not promise it forever. If Atlas brushes too near, the balance may break. Not with fire, but with silence. Not with impact, but with hunger. Not with sudden death, but with slow collapse. We often imagine destruction as an explosion, but it is just as often a famine. Civilizations collapse when granaries empty, when children starve, when people lose faith in rulers who cannot feed them. Physics sets the stage. Dust veils the sun, crops wither, politics falters, revolutions ignite. And in the ruins, centuries later, archaeologists puzzle over why it happened. But the true cause may not be in the soil. It may be in the sky. Think of the Younger Dryas, 12,000 years ago. The world had been warming after the last ice age. Forests spread, waters rose, life began to flourish. And then, suddenly, cold returned. Glaciers advanced, species vanished, human culture shifted overnight. Some scientists argue it was caused by a comet impact, a fragmenting body scattering fire across continents. Others say it was climate's own rhythm. But the possibility remains. The sky did it. And if it did once, it can do again. The laws of physics that govern comets and collisions are not bound to the past. They remain waiting. The science of destruction is elegant in its cruelty. It does not rage. It does not hate. It is numbers, velocity, mass, energy. What if the enigma is not that we discovered it now, but that we forgot it before? Its orbit is not bound. That is the most chilling truth. It comes from elsewhere. It will leave for elsewhere. But in between, it brushes Earth's fragile balance. A body like this does not need to strike us to undo us. A near pass can shift comets in the Oort cloud, sending storms of debris inward. A cloud of dust trailing behind it can dim our sun for years. A fragment breaking free can explode in our skies, flattening cities, igniting forests, tipping climate into chaos. And we, who build our towers on the assumption of stability, would crumble as swiftly as the Indus, the Maya, the Hittites. The enigma of Atlas is not only what it is, but what it can do without ever touching us. Scientists calculated its trajectory. They measured its speed, its brightness, its disintegration. They told us, this one is not a threat, not now, not directly, but the words linger, not now, because another like it will come, because another may already be on its way, because the universe does not warn us when it casts a wanderer across our path. We were not ready for Oumuamua. We barely glimpsed Borisov. And Atlas appeared almost unnoticed until its fragments fell apart before our eyes. If even one had been on a slightly different course, history might already have shifted. Civilizations might already be ash and silence. The enigma is not solved by orbital charts. It deepens with every discovery. Some have speculated wildly. Was Oumuamua artificial? Its shape too strange for nature? Was Atlas part of a larger body, shattered long ago in interstellar exile? Was its passage through our skies a coincidence, or part of a cycle we have yet to measure? These are not answers. They are questions that multiply, spiraling outward like ripples on dark water. And perhaps that is the true nature of Atlas. It resists our categories. It defies our certainty. It reminds us that the universe is not tame, not mapped, not under our control. It is a wilderness of wanderers, and we are small creatures caught in their paths. Imagine Atlas in the depths of interstellar space. No sun to warm it, no planet to circle, only the black. For billions of years, it drifts. Stars are born, burn, die. Galaxies spin. Civilizations rise and fall, never knowing its passage. And then, one day, it brushes past our sun. To us, it is a moment. To it, it is nothing. We assign it meaning because its shadow falls across us, because we sense in its indifference a reflection of our fragility. The enigma of Atlas is not only scientific, it is existential. It forces us to ask, are we permanent or are we temporary? Like every empire that thought itself eternal, when the sky stirs, when the wanderers return, are we anything more than a moment soon to be erased? The myths called such bodies curses. The ancients feared them because they remembered. They had seen. They had survived, or at least their descendants had. We, in our arrogance, call them comets, icy relics, trivial specks. But perhaps they were right to fear. Perhaps the curse of Atlas is not a metaphor, but a memory. Perhaps each passage is marked by collapse, by silence, by ruins that archaeologists puzzle over millennia later. And perhaps it has returned to remind us again. So what is Atlas? It is an object of ice and dust. It is a relic from another star. It is a wanderer among suns, but it is also something more. It is a mirror held up to humanity, reflecting our smallness. It is a clock, keeping time not in years, but in cycles of collapse. It is a curse, if we choose to see it as such, for it reminds us that the heavens are not benign. They are indifferent, and indifference can kill as surely as wrath. The enigma of Atlas is that it is all of these at once, a speck of rock, a messenger of fate, a reminder of mortality, a shadow on the sky that has ended worlds before and may do so again. When we look at Atlas through telescopes, we see only faint light, a whisper against the black. But when we look at it through the eyes of history, through the eyes of myth, through the eyes of ruins, we see something else. We see the same serpent carved into stones. We see the same fire recorded in chronicles. We see the same silence that follows collapse. Atlas is not only in the sky, it is in our memory. It is in our fears. It is in our future. And so, we must ask, is Atlas an accident or is it a pattern? Is it chance or is it destiny? Does it wander randomly or does it return on a rhythm too vast for us to yet perceive? Civilizations rise, civilizations fall, and the wanderers pass on their paths, indifferent. We count our days in years. Perhaps the universe counts them in passages of Atlas. Perhaps we are already written into its rhythm, our fates sealed long before we began to write our own stories. The enigma remains. Atlas is a visitor, a relic, a curse. It does not need to strike us to erase us. It only needs to pass, to brush us with dust, to whisper through our skies. And if history is any guide, it has done so before. And if history is prophecy, it will do so again. The ancients called it a serpent, a dragon, a god. We call it a comet. But the name does not matter. The silence it leaves behind does. Civilizations fear armies, rulers, revolutions. But the truth is that the greatest threats often come from above, silent, unseen, indifferent. The sky, in its vastness, is not empty. It is alive with wanderers, fragments, clouds of dust, rivers of ice and stone, and Earth, fragile Earth, moves through it like a ship on a dark ocean, never knowing when a storm may rise. We call the visitor Atlas. We call others comets, asteroids, meteors, but their names mean nothing to the laws of physics. And physics does not care for our walls, our empires, our illusions of permanence. Physics cares only for force, for motion, for consequence. When an object drifts close to Earth, it need not strike us to undo us. Gravity is invisible, yet relentless. A body the size of Atlas passing near can tug at the orbits of smaller comets, scattering them inward like a hand striking a hive. Each fragment becomes a messenger of fire. Each fragment carries the potential of Tunguska, of Chicxulub, of skies turned red. The dinosaurs never imagined that their world would end in a single day, yet a rock from the heavens silenced them forever. Humanity is not immune. Our intelligence, our cities, our satellites cannot shield us from the mathematics of collision, but even without impact, even without a single strike, a wanderer can still unravel the fabric of our world. Dust. That is all it takes. Comets trail vast clouds of it, fine as smoke, lingering across space. When Earth passes through such debris, meteors streak across the sky. Beautiful, we call them, shooting stars. But beauty deceives, for dust also veils the sun. A thin haze in the stratosphere can cool the planet by degrees. A few degrees are enough to shorten harvests, to wither crops, to starve millions. The chemistry of sunlight is delicate. Tilt it slightly, and civilizations tremble. Atlas, dragging its veil of dust, could dim our skies long enough to write famine into every field. We know this because history remembers. The year 536 is still called the darkest in human memory. Chroniclers wrote that the sun dimmed, a veil covered the heavens, and for more than a year the world was plunged into shadow. Crops failed. Famine spread from China to Ireland. The Byzantine Empire faltered. Some blame volcanoes. Some suspect cosmic dust. But the result was the same: hunger, plague, collapse. The mathematics is simple. A veil above, a famine below, and suddenly empires bend like reeds. What volcanoes can do once, comets can do again. The physics is the same, the destruction is the same, and then there is fire. When fragments enter the atmosphere, they ignite. Air itself becomes weapon, compressed and heated until it explodes. A stone the size of a mountain shatters continents. A stone the size of a building can erase a city. Even fragments smaller than houses can set forests ablaze, poison skies with smoke, and ripple climate for decades. Energy is merciless. Kinetic force is absolute. A single impact releases more energy than every weapon humanity has ever built. No army, no king, no tower of glass can stand against it. Physics does not negotiate, it only delivers. Yet, destruction need not be so dramatic. Even subtle changes can undo us. A passing body can shift tides, tilt orbit slightly, disturb the dance of Earth and Moon. A change of fractions of a degree may seem nothing to the cosmos, but to us, it is everything. Rivers change their courses. Seasons slip from their rhythm. Oceans rise where cities stand. Life thrives on stability, but stability is fragile, and physics does not promise it forever. If Atlas brushes too near, the balance may break. Not with fire, but with silence. Not with impact, but with hunger. Not with sudden death, but with slow collapse. We often imagine destruction as an explosion, but it is just as often a famine. Civilizations collapse when granaries empty, when children starve, when people lose faith in rulers who cannot feed them. Physics sets the stage. Dust veils the sun, crops wither, politics falters, revolutions ignite, and in the ruins, centuries later, archaeologists puzzle over why it happened. But the true cause may not be in the soil. It may be in the sky. Think of the Younger Dryas, 12,000 years ago. The world had been warming after the last ice age. Forests spread, waters rose, life began to flourish. And then, suddenly, cold returned. Glaciers advanced, species vanished, human culture shifted overnight. Some scientists argue it was caused by a comet impact, a fragmenting body scattering fire across continents. Others say it was climate's own rhythm, but the possibility remains. The sky did it. And if it did once, it can do again. The laws of physics that govern comets and collisions are not bound to the past. They remain waiting. The science of destruction is elegant in its cruelty. It does not rage. It does not hate. It is numbers, velocity, mass, energy. A rock traveling at 30 kilometers per second carries the power of gods. A veil of dust drifting through the stratosphere rewrites history. A gravitational tug shifts orbits, sending storms of debris across millennia. These are not fantasies. They are mechanics. They are inevitable. And when we look at Atlas, when we see its pale trail across our telescopes, we know here is one such body. Here is one such enigma. Here is one such curse. And yet, we marvel. Humanity has always looked at comets with awe. They are beautiful. Tails stretching across the heavens, glowing in colors that seem alive. They inspire poets, priests, astronomers. They are painted in manuscripts, carved in stone, recorded as omens. But beauty deceives. A comet is not gentle. Its beauty is the mask of its indifference. Behind its glow lies ice and dust, force and speed, the silent mathematics of collapse. Atlas is beautiful, but its beauty is the beauty of fire before it consumes, of waves before they drown, of silence before it takes hold. Imagine it passing near. The sky glows for weeks. Nights are brighter than day. Farmers cannot tell seasons. Animals scatter. Panic spreads. And then the real effects arrive. The sun dims, the rains fail, rivers shrink. Cities grow desperate. Wars ignite over water, over grain. Armies clash, but not because of politics, because the sky has shifted. Within years, an empire crumbles. Within decades, its ruins stand silent. And centuries later, we wonder why. The answer is above us. It has always been above us. This is the science of destruction. Not wrath, not myth, not anger of gods. It is physics, merciless and unblinking. Objects wander, orbits cross. Dust veils the sun. Impacts release fire. Gravity tugs unseen. And civilizations, fragile as glass, shatter. The ancients gave it names. Dragons, serpents, omens. We give it equations, models, simulations, but the outcome is the same. Cities fall, empires vanish, silence remains, and so we face the truth. Atlas need not strike us to destroy us. It need only pass. It need only whisper across our skies. And if history is honest, it has done so before. If physics is honest, it will do so again. Civilization is a fragile experiment, balanced on a thin line of climate and stability. The sky does not promise to preserve that balance. The sky promises only motion, only chance, only inevitability. The science of destruction is not abstract, it is intimate. It lives in our breath, in our harvests, in our rivers. Every loaf of bread depends on the sun shining just so, the rains falling just right, the earth tilting in balance. And a single visitor, a single veil of dust, a single fragment of fire can undo it all. We live as though permanence is ours, but permanence is a myth. The only truth is change. The only constant is fragility. An atlas is the reminder written across the stars. So when we look at it, when we see its pale face drifting near, we must not be lulled by beauty. We must remember the science. We must remember the numbers. We must remember that destruction does not come only from war or greed, but from dust, from gravity, from silence. The science of destruction is the story of Earth itself. It has happened before. It will happen again. And the only question is whether we will be ready, or whether we too will be another ruin, another silence, another whisper left for the next age to wonder at when Atlas has passed once more. History remembers what it can. It preserves kings, wars, treaties, inventions, but woven between its lines are stranger whispers, records of fire that fell from the sky, of nights that blazed like day, of suns that multiplied. These fragments do not sit comfortably in the pages of history. They feel like exaggerations, mistakes, fantasies, and yet they appear again and again across centuries, across cultures, across languages, always the same, always fire, always the heavens opening, pouring terror upon the earth. They are the forgotten chronicles of fire, erased by time, dismissed by reason, but still speaking in echoes for those who are willing to listen. In the year 44 BCE, the Romans mourned the death of Julius Caesar. Chroniclers wrote that a comet blazed in the sky for 7 days. It was interpreted as a sign of Caesar's deification, a heavenly crown above his memory. But others feared it was an omen, that Rome itself, though mighty, had entered its twilight. Within a generation, civil war consumed the Republic. The comet, to us, is coincidence. To them, it was prophecy. The sky had spoken, and its fire foreshadowed collapse. In the year 1006, across the Middle East, China, Japan, and Europe, the brightest stellar event in recorded history appeared. A supernova lit the skies so brilliantly that it cast shadows at night. Monks and scholars wrote in awe and terror. Some said the heavens were torn open. Some said a new sun had risen. Famines followed. Wars raged. The chronicles remember the fire, but the reason is buried in modern astronomy. Yet, what mattered to those who lived beneath it was not science but survival. The sky had burned, and the world shifted with it. Chinese chronicles are filled with such records. Court astronomers, tasked with watching the heavens for omens, wrote of fiery serpents, of stars with tails stretching across the horizon, of nights that glowed blood red. They warned emperors of floods, of famines, of rebellion to follow, and often they were right. Perhaps not because comets cause rebellion, but because the disruptions that follow, failed harvests, altered seasons, strange climates, ignite unrest among the hungry. Fire in the sky becomes fire in the streets. The chronicles preserve both. Babylonian tablets, older still, describe wandering stars and flaming swords that cross the heavens. Priests read them as judgment, kings as doom. The language is symbolic, but the memory is clear. Skies that should be constant were not. Something vast passed overhead, and civilizations trembled. These were not isolated notes. They were records of terror, written by scribes who could not ignore the signs above. Even in medieval Europe, where chronicles are colored by theology, the records persist. In 1230, chronicles from England described a fiery dragon stretching across the night sky, its tail burning red. Within the decade, famine swept through, killing thousands. In 1347, just before the Black Death, records speak of comets, of strange mists, of red skies. The plague was carried by rats and fleas, yes, But hunger and unrest weakened the people first, and hunger came from skies that dimmed, rains that failed, seasons that faltered. The chronicles remember, but we dismiss them as superstition. Yet superstition often grows from soil watered by real events. One of the most haunting records comes from 536 CE. Chroniclers across the Byzantine Empire, Ireland, China, and the Middle East wrote of a year when the sun gave no warmth. Days were dim, like twilight. Summers were cold, winters brutal, crops withered, famine stretched across continents. The chronicles are unanimous. Something veiled the sun. Some scientists blame volcanic eruptions. Others suspect cosmic dust from a passing comet. Whatever the cause, the effect was apocalyptic. Populations collapsed, empires faltered, and the memory of those years was etched into legend as a time of shadow and fire. The chronicles are scattered, fragmented, sometimes poetic, sometimes clinical, but together they form a tapestry. Fire in Rome, fire in China, fire in Babylon, fire in Europe. Each record alone is curious. Together, they are a pattern. They whisper of a sky that is not constant, of a cycle that recurs, of wanderers like Atlas, whose passage leaves scars not only in soil but in memory. Imagine standing in the marketplace of an ancient city. The night sky suddenly blooms with fire, a streak stretching across the horizon. People scream, priests fall to their knees, children cry. For weeks it lingers, a glowing wound in the heavens, and then, slowly the world below begins to falter. Rains do not come, crops grow thin, starvation spreads. Armies march, desperate for food, and decades later, the city is gone, its stones silent. But the chronicles remain. They do not explain. They only witness. They only whisper. The sky burned, and we fell. The forgotten chronicles of fire are scattered not only in books, but in myth. The Norse spoke of Ragnarok, when the sky itself would blaze. The Aztecs spoke of suns that died in flame. The Hindus described fiery weapons that scorched armies until only shadows remained. These are not only myths, they are memories, encoded in the only language that could endure. They are the survivor's way of saying, "We saw the heavens turn against us. We endured the fire, but not for long." Even modern times are not free of such records. In 1815, after the eruption of Mount Tambora, the world entered a year without summer. Snow fell in June. Crops failed across Europe and North America. Famine followed. Yet, alongside the volcanic veil may have been cosmic dust, for meteors blazed across the skies that year in unusual numbers. The chronicles tell us, when the heavens shift, the earth suffers. And when the earth suffers, civilizations stumble. What unites these fragments is not their detail, but their recurrence. Again and again, humans record fire in the sky, followed by collapse below. We treat them as curiosities, as folklore, as superstition. But what if they are evidence? What if they are humanity's true archive of celestial encounters? We dismiss them because they are wrapped in the language of fear. But fear may be the most honest witness of all. Imagine gathering all the chronicles together, from Babylon to China, from Rome to the Maya, from monks in Ireland to astronomers in Persia. Place them side by side. Patterns emerge, fiery serpents, suns devoured, skies turned red, and always famine follows, collapse follows, silence follows. The chronicles are not separate stories. They are verses in a single epic, repeated across civilizations, across millennia, the epic of the sky's indifference and humanity's fragility. Why are these records forgotten? Perhaps because they do not fit our narrative. We prefer to believe in human causes. Corruption, greed, war. To admit that the heavens can undo us is to admit that we are not in control. And so, we file the chronicles away, mark them as superstition, strip them of meaning. But the sky does not forget. The pattern remains, whether we choose to see it or not. Atlas, the Wanderer, belongs to this pattern. It is one more chapter in the Chronicles of Fire. It does not rage. It does not choose. It passes. And in passing, it leaves behind silence. The scribes of Rome saw it as omen. The priests of China saw it as serpent. The monks of Europe saw it as dragon. We see it as comet. But the name changes nothing. The fire remains. The famine remains. The collapse remains. So let us listen again to the forgotten chronicles of fire. Let us hear the voices of those who looked up in terror, who wrote in trembling hands of skies that betrayed them. They are not only stories. They are not only metaphors. They are warnings, carried across time, waiting for us to finally understand. The heavens have burned before. They will burn again. And when they do, will our chronicles be remembered, or will they too be forgotten? Whispers buried beneath ruins. Patterns haunt the human mind. We search for them in clouds, in stars, in the movement of seasons. We are wired to see rhythm in chaos, order in chance. Yet sometimes, what seems like coincidence is not imagination, but recognition. Beneath the noise lies a pulse. Beneath the ruins lies a rhythm. And when we set myths beside chronicles, when we place archaeology beside astronomy, the fragments begin to align. A picture emerges, not of random collapse, not of accidents scattered across time, but of a curse, a cycle that returns, a hidden pattern older than history, older than memory, older perhaps than humanity itself. The curse pattern. Civilizations do not collapse in isolation. Their endings echo one another, scattered across continents, yet strangely synchronized. The Indus Valley, Idor, the Old Kingdom of Egypt, the Akkadian Empire, all faltered within centuries of one another. Around 2200 BCE, records speak of drought, famine, skies dimmed, a global crisis stretching from the Nile to the Yellow River. Archaeologists call it the 4.2 kilo-year event, a name clinical enough to strip it of terror. But what caused it? Volcanoes? Random climate? Or was it a veil of dust, a whisper of debris from a passing wanderer? Atlas, or something like it, brushing Earth with silence? The Bronze Age collapse followed a millennium later. The Hittites, Mycenaeans, Egyptians, and others all fell within decades. Cities burned, trade collapsed, languages vanished. Again, the chronicles mention fire in the sky, wandering stars, omens that terrified kings. Coincidence? Or the return of the same curse, marking time in centuries, not years? Move forward still. The fall of the Maya around 900 CE. The abandonment of Cahokia around 1350, the famine of 536 CE, each aligned not by geography, not by politics, but by the sky. Each collapse mirrored in myths of dragons, suns devoured, skies aflame, the same language, the same fear, the same silence. It is not the fall of empires we are tracing, it is the rhythm of the heavens, striking like the tolling of a clock. The curse pattern is subtle, because it does not strike with regularity we can easily see. Its rhythm is long, stretching across centuries, hidden within our short memory. But when we widen our lens, when we place millennia side by side, the cadence reveals itself. Civilizations rise, flourish, build monuments, and then, suddenly, silence. A passage, a veil, a collapse. Again and again. We forget. We rebuild. We rise. And then the cycle turns once more. What makes this pattern so cruel is its indifference. It is not punishment, not morality, not judgment. It is mathematics. It is the physics of wandering bodies, of dust veils, of collisions unseen. It is the simple truth that Earth moves through space, and space is not empty. To call it a curse is to give it a name, to make sense of the senseless. But perhaps it is more accurate to call it inevitability, the inevitability of collapse, written in the stars. Yet the ancients were not blind. They saw the pattern, though they spoke of it in myth. The Aztecs told of suns that died in cycles, each age ending with fire or flood. The Hindus told of yugas, cosmic ages that rose and fell, repeating endlessly. The Norse told of Ragnarok, a cycle of destruction and rebirth. These are not simply stories of endings. They are acknowledgments of recurrence, of rhythm, of pattern. And when we compare them to the ruins in the soil, the chronicles in the archives, the comets in the sky, they align too closely to ignore. Myth remembers what science has only begun to rediscover, that collapse is not random, it is cyclical. Consider the year 1815, Tambora's eruption. A year without summer followed. Crops failed. Millions starved. At the same time, comets blazed in the sky, meteor showers intensified. Was it coincidence? Perhaps. Or perhaps not. For the curse pattern does not need a single cause. It is a tapestry woven of many threads. Volcanoes, dust, impacts, famine, all triggered or amplified by the heavens stirring. Each collapse is unique in detail, but familiar in shape. Each is another verse in the same endless song. The danger lies in forgetting. We live in the present, blind to cycles that span millennia. We see Rome fall and call it history. We see the Maya vanish and call it mystery. We see famines and plagues and call them chance. But when we place them together, the pattern becomes visible. Every empire believes it is eternal. Every empire believes collapse is impossible. Every empire is wrong. The curse pattern waits, patient, hidden in the stars. Atlas is part of this rhythm, an interstellar wanderer drifting across epochs. It need not return on a schedule we understand. Its passages may be rare, separated by centuries, by millennia, but each time it comes near, the world shifts. Dust veils skies, fragments ignite fires, civilizations falter. Survivors carve serpents into stone, record dragons in chronicles, whisper of dying suns. Then centuries pass, memory fades, myths soften, and we forget, until the curse passes again, until the rhythm repeats. What makes this pattern so terrifying is that it may already be written into our future. Our towers of glass, our global networks, our satellites and grids, all rely on the same fragile balance of climate and stability. A veil of dust, a shift in seasons, a few degrees cooler or hotter, and the system trembles. We like to believe we are immune, more advanced than the Maya, more resilient than Rome. But resilience is an illusion. Complexity is fragility. And the curse pattern does not care for progress. It only cares for recurrence. Think of our own myths of apocalypse. We speak of nuclear fire, of climate collapse, of machines rebelling, of plagues. But beneath them lies the same truth the ancients knew. We fear the cycle. We fear the return. We fear that no matter how much we build, the sky can undo us. And perhaps, deep down, we recognize the rhythm. We sense the pattern. We know it is only a matter of time. Patterns comfort us when they are predictable. Seasons, tides, the rising and setting of the sun. But the curse pattern is different. It is vast, irregular, hidden. It reveals itself only when enough centuries are placed side by side. And by the time we notice, it is too late. The fire has already come. The silence has already spread. The ruins are already being written. And yet, there is a strange beauty in the pattern. It is the beauty of impermanence, the beauty of knowing that nothing, not even empires, lasts forever. The stars move, the comets wander, civilizations rise and fall, and through it all, the universe remains indifferent, eternal, vast. The curse pattern is terrifying, but it is also the truth. A truth we can ignore, or a truth we can face. But either way, the rhythm will play on. So let us call it what it is. Not coincidence, not myth, not superstition. A curse, if you wish. A pattern, if you are honest. A cycle written in dust and fire, in ruins and silence. The ancients remembered it. We have forgotten. But Atlas has not. It drifts still, carrying with it the memory of countless collapses, countless silences. And one day, whether tomorrow or 1,000 years from now, it will remind us again. The curse pattern is the story of humanity. We build, we rise, we flourish. And then, the sky stirs, and we fall, again and again. Until one day, perhaps, we learn. Or until one day, perhaps, there is no one left to remember. Only ruins, only silence, only the stars carrying the pattern onward, indifferent forever. The ancients saw serpents uncoiling across the sky. They spoke of dragons devouring the sun, of fiery beasts stretching from horizon to horizon, of trails that burned for weeks. They feared the serpent's return because to them it was not a story. It was memory. They had seen it before, and they knew it would come again. And now, with telescopes instead of temples, with satellites instead of scribes, we too find ourselves staring into the heavens, waiting, for the serpent is not dead. It coils in the black between the stars. Its name in our age is Atlas, and it will return. What does it mean for the cosmic serpent to return in our time? In the ancient world, collapse meant silence in cities, famine in fields, temples swallowed by jungle, palaces left in dust. Today, collapse carries a different face. Today, we are global. We are connected. Our networks span continents, our satellites circle the planet, our lifelines are delicate threads of electricity and code. What happens when dust veils the sun, not for one valley or one empire, but for all? What happens when skies dim across every continent, when harvests fail everywhere at once, when hunger spreads not in one kingdom, but in all nations together? For the first time, collapse may not be local. It may be planetary. The serpent returns not with malice, but with indifference. A veil of dust trailing behind Atlas could scatter sunlight across months, across years. Temperatures shift. Rains falter. Crops wither. Grain prices rise. Riots begin. Wars follow. In a world where every system is interlocked, where the failure of one nation ripples through all, collapse would not be scattered ruins. It would be a cascade, a chain reaction. Fragility disguised as strength, revealed in a moment of cosmic breath. The ancients feared their own skies. We must fear ours far more. And what of fragments? A piece of Atlas, small in cosmic scale but vast in human measure, could ignite the atmosphere. The energy released would dwarf our weapons, flatten cities, poison skies. Tunguska was a warning. Chelyabinsk in 2013 was a whisper, only a fragment. Yet it shattered windows, injured thousands, startled the modern world into momentary humility. What if it had been larger? What if it had struck directly above a city of millions? The serpent does not need to coil across the sky in majesty. Even a fragment of its tail is enough to undo us. We look up and see beauty. Comets are beautiful. They arc across the night, luminous, ethereal, inspiring poets and astronomers alike. But beauty deceives. The serpent shines because sunlight burns its skin. Its glow is not a gift. It is a warning. It is the fire of destruction stretched thin across the void. Our ancestors saw its beauty and trembled. We see its beauty and take pictures. But the danger is the same. The serpent is not ours to tame. Consider our fragile civilization. Our satellites orbit above us, vulnerable to storms of dust, to fragments that move faster than bullets. Our internet, our electricity, our commerce, our very breath depends on a system balanced with no margin for error. A veil of dust dims the sun, and solar panels falter. Fragments strike, and satellites shatter. Networks collapse. Planes fall silent. Grids fail. Panic spreads faster than famine. The serpent does not need to strike Earth itself. It need only stir the space around us, and our fragile web unravels. Imagine the serpent's return. Imagine a world where nights glow as bright as days, where streaks of fire cross the horizon for weeks. The news fills with images of a tail stretching across the heavens. At first, wonder, awe, beauty, and then unease. Crops fail in Asia, drought spreads in Africa, storms intensify in the Americas, economies stagger, riots begin, wars ignite, and still the serpent glows above, indifferent, eternal. It does not rage. It does not choose. It passes, and in passing it leaves silence. This is how civilizations end in our time, not with a single blow, but with a cascade, a chain of fragility snapping link by link, all because the serpent returned. And yet, part of us longs for meaning. The ancients gave the serpent names. They saw gods in its coils, omens in its fire. They believed it was punishment or prophecy or fate. We call it comet, debris, interstellar object. We strip it of myth, give it equations. But behind the words, the fear remains. We may know its mass, its orbit, its velocity, but we do not know its intent, for it has none. That is what terrifies us most. That is what makes it feel like curse. It does not hate us. It simply does not care. The serpent's return is not just an event, it is a reminder. It tells us that we are fragile, that our civilizations, however vast, stand on foundations of dust. It tells us that memory is short, that myths exist because survivors encoded warnings we have chosen to forget. It tells us that we are never safe, never beyond the reach of the heavens. We live in its cycle, whether we acknowledge it or not. And the cycle will continue long after we are gone. Perhaps the serpent has already brushed us more times than we can count. Perhaps every great collapse, every sudden silence in history was marked by its passing. The Indus, the Maya, Rome, the Bronze Age, they saw its coils and they fell. Now it drifts again, and we wonder, will we be the next stanza in its song? Will our towers of glass, our networks of code, our satellites of metal be as fragile as pyramids swallowed by jungle, as palaces reduced to ash? Will our memory too become myth, our warnings too become whispers, dismissed by those who come after as superstition? The cosmic serpent returns, not as God, not as punishment, but as inevitability. It does not need to aim. It does not need to choose. It only needs to pass. Its coils are dust. Its breath is fire. Its body is silence. And we, beneath its shadow, are small. We can measure. We can watch. We can prepare. But we cannot stop it. We cannot command the heavens. All we can do is remember. And remembering may be the difference between survival and erasure. The ancients carved the serpent into stone. They told their children of dragons and sons devoured. They left us their fear as a gift. We have forgotten the meaning of that gift. But the serpent has not forgotten us. It drifts closer, coil by coil, unseen until it glows again. And when it does, will we tremble as they did? Will we finally understand their myths as memory, their stories as warnings? Or will we laugh, as we always do, until the sky turns against us once more? The cosmic serpent returns. It always returns. It is not a question of if. It is only a question of when. We stand between fate and fear. Fate, the whisper that the sky has already written our ending, that collapse is not a question of if, but when. Fear, the shadow that grows each time a comet passes, each time the heavens blaze, each time we remember that our lives, our empires, our futures, are all balanced on a fragile thread of chance. Between them lies humanity, restless, uncertain, staring into the abyss of time and wondering whether we are the authors of our destiny, or only its readers, powerless to change a story already inked in the stars. For the ancients, the choice did not exist. To them, the heavens were gods, and gods cannot be defied. A fiery serpent appeared in the sky, and it was doom. A star with a tail blazed for months, and it was judgment. Collapse was inevitable. Fate was absolute. They responded not with prevention, but with ritual, sacrifices, prayers, monuments. Their fear gave birth to myth, but myth gave no shield. Empires still crumbled, cities still fell silent. The heavens remained indifferent. Fate consumed them, and fear was all that was left. We, however, stand in a different place. We have equations, telescopes, simulations. We have the power to track trajectories, to predict returns, to understand at least a fraction of the mechanics that once seemed divine. And yet, knowledge does not erase fear. If anything, it deepens it. For now we know, beyond myth, just how fragile we are. We know the scale of energy released when a fragment of stone meets our atmosphere. We know the chaos that a thin veil of dust can cause, cooling the planet, starving millions. We know that objects like Atlas drift endlessly through the void, and we know that collisions are not possibility, but certainty. Given enough time, we may not know when, but we know it will come. Knowledge has not freed us from fate. It has only named it more clearly. So we exist between two poles. On one side, fatalism, the belief that nothing we do can matter, that civilizations are doomed to collapse in the same rhythm as those before, that Atlas will return and silence us as it silenced them. On the other side, defiance, the fragile hope that by knowing, by preparing, by uniting, we can resist what the ancients could not. Between them lies a narrow path, filled with tension, filled with dread, filled with urgency. But are we capable of walking it? Our history is not encouraging. We quarrel among ourselves. We ignore warnings until it is too late. We laugh at omens, dismiss evidence, forget the lessons carved into ruins and myths alike. Even now, as telescopes reveal more wanderers, as scientists warn of planetary defense, we devote more of our strength to war, to greed, to distraction, than to preparing for the sky. Fear drives us inward, into denial, into avoidance, rather than outward into action. Fate seems easier to accept than the hard work of preparation. It is easier to say the serpent will return and nothing can be done than to face the truth that something could be done, but only if we dared to act together. And yet, perhaps that is the test. Perhaps the curse is not only the serpent itself, but our inability to respond. Perhaps civilizations collapse not only because the heavens strike, but because humanity always chooses to forget. always chooses to delay, always chooses to build monuments to power rather than defenses against fate. Perhaps the serpent's return is both physical and psychological, a test of memory, a test of will. Each age faces it. Each age fails, until one day, maybe, an age does not. Fear can paralyze, but it can also awaken. Fear reminds us that we are small, that permanence is an illusion, that our time is precious. Fate may be written in the stars, but perhaps not entirely. Perhaps destiny is not absolute but negotiable. A comet on course can be nudged, deflected, scattered. A veil of dust can be endured, if we prepare. Knowledge is our only weapon against inevitability, and perhaps that is the narrow space between fate and fear, the space of choice, however slim, however fragile. Imagine the serpent's return in our age. At first, wonder fills the sky. People gaze upward, marveling at the beauty, taking pictures. But scientists calculate its trajectory, its fragments, its veil. They warn of possible dust veils, possible impacts, possible consequences. Panic spreads. Governments argue. The public wavers between denial and dread. This is the moment when fate and fear collide. If we surrender to fatalism, nothing is done. The cycle repeats. Collapse comes. But if we choose to act, perhaps for the first time in history, humanity resists the curse. Perhaps the serpent's return becomes not our end, but our trial. And here lies the deepest question. Do we deserve to survive? Each empire before us believed it did. Each thought itself eternal. Each believed collapse was impossible until it came. Are we different? Or are we only repeating the arrogance of the past, dressing it in technology and progress, but still blind to the same cycle? If survival requires unity, foresight, humility, do we possess them? Or will our towers of glass fall as easily as pyramids, our satellites vanish as easily as temples? Between fate and fear lies this choice. Between fate and fear lies our test. We must also ask, what is survival? To endure physically is one thing. To remember is another. The ancients carved warnings into stone, told stories of dragons and dying suns. We inherit their voices, but we do not listen. We treat their warnings as myth, not memory. If we survive the serpent's return, but fail to remember, then we are still trapped in the cycle. True survival is not only living through the curse, it is learning from it. It is remembering it. It is preparing for it the next time, and the time after that, until at last the curse loses its power. Until at last fate bends to memory. Perhaps that is what stands before us now. Perhaps we are the first age with the chance to break the cycle. We know more than our ancestors. We can measure, predict, prepare. And yet we are also the most fragile, for our world is interconnected, global, dependent on threads of technology that can unravel in an instant. Our strength is also our weakness. Between fate and fear lies not certainty, but possibility. The possibility that we may endure, the possibility that we may fail. The serpent cares nothing for which we choose, but we must choose. Fear will never leave us. The sky is too vast, the universe too indifferent, for fear to vanish. Fate will always whisper, but perhaps we can learn to walk between them, to let fear sharpen, not paralyze, to let fate remind us of fragility, but not rob us of agency, to accept that we are small but not powerless, to admit that we may fall, but also that we may rise. Between fate and fear lies humanity, a fragile species trembling beneath the stars, yet daring to hope that memory can be stronger than myth, that preparation can be stronger than panic, that survival can be more than accident. The ancients fell because they could not choose. We may fall because we will not. But perhaps, if we remember, if we act, if we refuse to forget the chronicles of fire, then the serpent's return will not erase us. It will test us. And perhaps for the first time, we will pass. Between fate and fear lies the future. And the future is ours only if we dare to claim it. Every story must end. Every empire must fall. Every flame must fade. This has always been the rhythm of the world, and perhaps the rhythm of the universe itself. Yet, some endings are not gentle, some are not gradual. Some come from above, sudden and absolute, like a hand erasing lines from a page. The ancients remembered those endings. They called them curses, omens, serpents, gods. They carved their fear into stone, whispered it into myth, passed it down through generations. And then, as always, we forgot. Until the serpent returns, until the fire comes again, until silence replaces voices and ruins replace cities. And so, this story ends where it began, with a warning. Atlas is only a name, a comet, a fragment, an interstellar wanderer, a speck of ice and dust against the infinite dark. To our instruments, it is faint light. To our science, it is velocity, orbit, trajectory. But to history, it is something more. It is the memory of collapse, the shadow of civilizations erased, the serpent carved in stone, the curse that threads our past together. To say it will return is not prophecy, it is certainty. For everything in the heavens moves, and every movement has consequence. The question is not if, it is when. We look at ruins and think of them as past, but they are also warnings. Mohenjo-Daro, its streets silent, its wells dry, its people gone. The Maya, their pyramids swallowed by jungle, their calendars frozen mid-cycle. Rome, its empire fractured, its chronicles filled with omens of fire. The Bronze Age, its palaces burned, its trade routes shattered. Each ruin is a page in the same book. Each silence is a verse in the same poem. Each collapse is a reminder that the sky has always had the final word, and the sky does not negotiate. The last warning is this: we are not exempt. We are not different. We are not immune. Our towers of glass, our networks of code, our satellites orbiting above us, they feel eternal because they are new. But eternity is not measured in centuries. Eternity is measured in cycles, in passages, in rhythms too vast for human memory. And by those measures, we are as fragile as any who came before. One veil of dust, one fragment of fire, one brush of Atlas, and our age too could end in silence. But perhaps we have one advantage the ancients did not. We know the danger. We can measure, we can prepare, we can remember. The serpent's return need not be our doom. It can be our trial. It can be the moment we prove that memory can break the cycle, that knowledge can shield us from fate, that humanity can endure not by chance, but by choice. The warning is not hopeless, it is urgent. The heavens have undone us before, but perhaps this time we can resist. Still, we must ask ourselves, will we? Will we act? Or will we do as the ancients did, watch the skies in awe, tell stories of dragons, and then fall into silence? Will our chronicles be carved in digital code, only to vanish when the lights go out? Will our ruins be skyscrapers, rusting in silence, mistaken by some future age for monuments to forgotten gods? Will our warnings be dismissed as myth until the cycle repeats again? The last warning is not a prophecy of certain death. It is a choice between memory and forgetting, between preparation and denial, between survival and silence. The serpent will return, the fire will come, the dust will veil. That is inevitable. What is not inevitable is whether we endure. That is our choice. That is the test. That is the only space where fate bends to will. And so we end where the ancients began, looking at the sky, trembling at its beauty, fearing its indifference. They saw fire and called it curse. We see fire and call it comet. But the truth is the same. The heavens are vast. We are small, and the serpent returns. Listen to the ruins. Listen to the myths. Listen to the chronicles of fire. They are not fantasy. They are memory. They are warnings written in the only language that could endure. They whisper to us across millennia. Beware the sky when it burns. Beware the wandering star. Beware the serpent's return. This is the last warning. The sky has ended worlds before. It will end worlds again. Whether we are among them is not yet written, but the ink waits, the page waits. And above us, the serpent coils in silence, ready to write.